Didn't even tell me about this kind of like
No.
secret dream.
No, I did not. I was just like, oh God, it'd be nice to have one of these things like eventually, and like enjoy the idea of living on the top floor. It actually came to me. So thank you, Jesus, for making that weird random. My next dream, Lord, is to stay in a show house. No, I'm just kidding.
This is a story of why we bought this place and why we sold it and why to God be all the glory. I'm sarahxmiracle and with me is Mark. And some of you may have seen that we posted a video about how we moved from a Dawson BTO eventually into this beautiful penthouse that we're sitting in right now. And we're just a day before moving out. And we just wanted to record our testimony and our sharing about this entire home so that it acts as a form of emotional closure and remembrance for us, and that our children who are watching this, especially the young ones who may not know what's going on, will remember and recall this beautiful home that was so full of memories. Thanksgiving, first of all, for this home. Maybe you can share your feelings about this home when we first stayed here. Like, remember the day after, like the first night after sleeping in this home.
I remember sitting on the sofa and then like looking out at the super high ceilings and going, wow, this is my house. This is awesome. I think it's like, when before you move in, you're always kind of dreaming about what the place will be and given you've already seen it, right? But it hasn't kind of, materialized in its full form. When we were finally sitting there that first morning, I was just like a bit lost.
And tell them about your secret dream that you didn't even tell me about.
Where we used to stay, we were renting a place in Upper Bukit Timah, and I would take runs like near the Bukit Timah Hill, and there's like a couple of developments there, and one of them I remember from the road you would be able to see like what looked like a penthouse unit, and it seemed to be very verdant. There was like a lot of green, it had a lot of plants, and at night it would be like lit up somewhat, right? And I was
like the rooftop terrace would be lit.
The rooftop. And I thought, like, oh, wouldn't it be really nice to have like a good place to have a barbecue and have a party? So then it'd be nice to live on the top floor and have a balcony that I could like barbecue at. And then, yeah, here we are. We had like a balcony. We were on the top floor, and I definitely had a few barbecues up here. So that was very nice.
And you didn't even tell me about this kind of like secret dream.
No, I didn't. I was just like, oh God, it'd be nice to have one of these things like eventually, and like enjoy the idea of living on the top floor. And it actually came to me. So thank you, Jesus, for making that weird random. My next dream, Lord, is to stay in a show house. No, I'm just kidding.
So I think when we first decided on buying this place, we were actually torn between two options. One was a freehold but very poor condition home. It was like a third story, 1,700 square feet, 4-bedroom at Kavanagh House. Now, Kavanagh House is a very, very small set of condominiums. There's just a little tiny pool and a tiny gym. And we had friends who stayed there before, and that's why we were familiar with that development. And the asking prices for this and that were very, very similar, like the closing prices, which was about $2.8 to $2.9 million at the time. And I still remember that we were almost going to make an offer for Kavanagh House.
Yeah.
And then my dad said, okay, that's really like what you settled on. And the reasons were that was going to be very, very near to our son's school because he's in AC. And then the other thing was that it's freehold, right? So my dad said, can you please do the sums now that you decided, make sure that you can really afford the place. And so we did this massive spreadsheet, and we had our stamp duty, we had our whatever they put in. And then the deal breaker for us was that the Kavanagh House one required minimally like $200,000 to $300,000 worth of renovation because we had to gut renovate the entire thing. So that was one of the biggest things that we didn't have. We didn't have that much capital. We were looking at roughly about $100,000 renovation, but we didn't have like $200,000 or $300,000 in renovation. And so then when we thought about, okay, but livability, right? And where would we feel like happy to live? Where would we feel like, wow, this is a place that we could call home? We knew the answer instinctively was going to be here at Cavendish Park and not at Kavanagh House. This was a 99-year leasehold, already older property, right? With about 60 plus 70 years on the lease. Okay, actually, you know what? That's the main thing. It was really just the freehold problem, right? I mean, price-wise, it was going to be about the same. And also, it was in a better condition. It didn't need as much renovation works. And also, the ceilings here were so much higher and so much brighter. The Kavanagh House unit was quite dark and a bit depressing. And you overlook a car park. So, and the rooms, the inner rooms, the two inner rooms face an inner corridor. So overall, like low floor, facing corridor, facing car park.
Yeah, in terms of views, it wasn't that.
Yeah, just the quality of light. And
I think we liked the fact that this was very bright, right? Previous rental had been a bit dark, on the darker side already. And you find yourself in the daytime, you're like flicking on all the lights because it's just so dark. Like this, like there are many times where we've not had the lights on simply because you just open the windows. Right? The windows are huge.
Like now, we never switch on the lights in the day. It's just so bright.
Yep.
Because there's windows on both sides because we're a corner unit and the rooms are all bright as well. Right. Inez's is the one that is inner facing, but she's a teenager and she likes her room dark. So. And the other thing was that this house had 3 en-suites, meaning that all the bedrooms, except for the study room, had an ensuite. So the only thing is that the study, however, is not a real room because it was actually carved out from the living area. And so it still has the marble floor. You can still see it's the same floor as the living area because this area that we're sitting in front of right now, that was the original 4th bedroom, which is actually quite a bit larger. But a previous owner had the insight to knock it down and make this whole living area such a really nice and big and beautiful one. So in terms of the livability, we love this place so much more and we just went forward with it, right? A lot of other things we're very grateful for that happened. Some key milestones was when we moved in here, we only had 3 children. And at the time, the study was going to be like our production space. We designed it with like a semi-soundproof door and like a glass so that we could like have some light in the room. And so we were just like so grateful that we had just enough space for everyone to do their own thing. But of course, we had Lila, our
unexpectedly
double rainbow baby that was technically already revealed to me in a prophetic dream when we were pregnant with Aaron, which is another story, Lila's birth story, for another time. But basically, what we thought was enough turned out in just like a year, turned out to be not enough because then that study room became Lila's sleeping room. And in fact, that study room was also Aaron's sleeping room because he was still waking up at night and we didn't want him to disturb Leon, his older brother, who he eventually then moved to share rooms with. But we want to be so thankful because this Maison Miracle, was the house that Lila was technically conceived and born in. She is such a big part of the story to play in our family, the completion of the family. Without this home, she might not have been conceived. It is the whole entire season that God had placed us in to receive more, to expand more, to have, 4 children plus 1 in heaven with Fadia.
In a way, we actually had capacity to
have the 4 children.
Have Lila, right? When we were in our first home, when we discovered that we were pregnant with Nadia, who is now in heaven, right? I remember that we just looked around at the house and going, well, where are we going to put the cot again?
We could not fit a cot in that room with the queen size bed.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, well, we're going to struggle to kind of have a baby, in this space, right? And already, either the baby would have to share space with the toddler, and that's also not really ideal. And Inez's room at the time was so small, like it was generally, there was no way you could kind of put anything else.
There was already a piano, a study table, a bed, and a cupboard.
It was basically that was
no walking space.
Either the baby would have slept, I don't know, on some tiny basket somewhere, and that's not a sustainable solution in the long run, right? The baby has to grow. So already at that time, we're like, we'll have to move, and we did. But in this space, it's like I'm really grateful that we had a space for Lila to have a separate room from the very get-go, right? So that she could kind of learn to fall asleep by herself. Very important. And we were able to kind of then, I guess, convert a section of the bedroom into a makeshift study where it has been the study, the office, the place to take all the calls and whatnot.
You mean our bedroom?
Our bedroom, yes.
Yeah. So the study moved to our bedroom.
And so Lila's room now, even though it does not have windows and it's a sort of a repurposed space in a way, is actually still big enough for
a cot
and
a single mattress next to it.
So have a little mattress, next to it as well. I mean, we actually had space.
This house was great for hosting people, right? I mean, this beautiful marble table that we are bringing with us, right? We also had the dry kitchen island. We also had all the space that people could hang out, the space for a huge sofa from Castlereagh, and still the outdoor spaces that Mark talked about for the barbecuing. So we never have to rent a function room, never had to rent a barbecue pit because literally
we always had the space to
the house bigger than the function room and bigger than the barbecue pit.
Yeah, it's not bigger.
In a way, right? As in, and it's so much more comfortable, and there's different programming areas for us, kitchens right there. So we're so grateful that we got to host people, which is part of what I guess somewhat of our love language. We like hosting people and giving people an experience to come to. And we're so glad that all of our friends managed to come at some point to be with us in this beautiful house. And, I guess that this house holds that memory. I guess that we love to host at our previous place at Bukit Timah as well. But hosting here, I think really felt like a hosting place, right? With the high ceilings, right? With the indoor-outdoor spaces, with big table, even like the servery behind it, you see like just like with all the cups and the plates just behind, where we could just easily access it. So it's really been an amazing space for us, and we're so thankful that God gave us a space. Moving on to why we're selling it and why we're moving on when everybody's like, wow, your place is so beautiful, like we never saw it. And I'm so sorry that, we never posted the home tour until like the very end. But it was so amazing that when I was like trying to work on the edit of the home tour, I realized that, wow, it's so meaningful that I'm putting in actual memories of how we used the space. When I had first recorded a home tour, I was still pregnant with Lila. And we're just imagining, okay, this is what we imagined the space would be. And they had all come to pass. Like, we're just so grateful for that. Like, everything came to pass.
Technically, we've run out of rooms, right? In a sense. I mean, we've moved into a season where both Sarah and I essentially work from home. And let's be real, the bedroom should not really be the study or the workspace, and the workspace should not really be your bedroom. I understand that most people would, like say, well, I mean, if you have to do it, you have to do it. And I mean, we have done it. We've survived.
But we're like workaholics.
It's not really ideal. And I think we definitely want some sort of separation between work and house life.
Because so much of our lives and works are really integrated, right? Like we're working on our phones all the time. We are working in the bedroom as well. So there doesn't seem to be that boundary. And I think what we're trying to reclaim in this season is like boundaries again, where we have boundaries that keep us safe and keep us healthy, keep us mentally well. Because like we've both been on the brink of burnt out, from overwork, right? From just, and also almost like anxiety, because you see the computer in front of you, you see the laptop in front of you. My mind, especially me, I don't know, I'm always in overdrive already. And so having the bedroom be reclaimed as a place of like pure rest, a place that we can just talk to God, talk to each other, that would be great.
Yeah. On top of that, Leon's getting to the stage where he clearly needs like his own little space to actually do his homework and do some of his tuition, some of his assessments and stuff. And currently that's kind of always been at the dining table, but it's not really working out, let's be real. And, he shares a room currently with Aaron as well. So, when Aaron is back, or if, like there's just like a lot of mix of toys, we got a lot of disagreements. That's mine, or this is mine, and stuff like that. So I think it's good to have, if we are able to, right, to have a separation of some of those things.
In conclusion, we want to kind of reorganize the family because the two younger ones are now closer in age and they're growing up like more close together. And we did this experiment where they slept together in a hotel room and they just fell asleep together. We're like, this should be it. Like they should be just sleeping in the same room, right? And also because they don't have to wake up as early as Leon, because Leon wakes up way earlier for school, and the two younger ones wake up inevitably because they hear the noise from him.
Yeah.
And also because Aaron is waking up because, when Coco gets up, the toilet, which is the ensuite that we love, toilet light just switches on and everything. So we're going to be moving Leon to his very own room, his very own toilet. And Inez is the one who's going to be sharing a Jack and Jill with the two younger ones because they don't often use the toilets at the same time. And that way we reduce the clashes, but everyone still gets their own toilet access. One is Leon growing up and being in a very strong identity forming stage where he needs to kind of form his identity of who he's becoming as a young person, because in the next 2 years he's going to be almost a teenager. And that's very important for us to give him the space to do that. And on the other hand, also help to form the bond between Lila and Aaron to be in the same room so that, they can form their own special bond as well. And of course, we want to maintain the quality of life for Zeze to have her own room and still have a bathroom access, even though now it's not going to be her own, but, still have a nice room that's big enough to put things like her guitar gear, her collectibles, because she's into like Lego and everything. Even be able to like have her friends sit on beanbags in her room, come and hang out, have her own little like hosting space as well. In conclusion, it's a space thing, but it's also like a life thing and a seasonal thing. And so we know that there's really very few apartments bigger than this. It's already a 4-bedroom, 1,959 with the balcony is 2,300. So
massive space.
But we've decided to just rent a landed house, and the miracle is that landed house was completely off market, and it was because we had thought of renting this out and renting a landed house, but one of the agents who I kept in touch with said, oh yeah, we have something coming up in July. No one else ever saw it. We secured it, and we're at what we felt was a reasonable rate, right? So it has a total of 7 rooms, which includes 4 main bedrooms, a guest room, a playroom, and a study. That's 7 rooms. And that's just like crazy because that's exactly the kind of programming that we've wanted. Like we didn't even expect to think of having a separate playroom, but when we saw the house and the tenant had it at the playroom, we're like, oh my gosh, so this is brilliant, right? So we don't have the toys just having to like fill up everywhere and figuring out.
All the classic can be one place and you just go stop.
Yeah, I mean, whatever, right? And it's also for us to be able to like then host people with children, and then the children can be in the playroom playing so that the adults can be outside as well.
Big TV.
So in a way, like we're always thinking about hosting and hospitality, and we believe that this next house that we're in is going to be able to allow us to host like families with children in a way that we couldn't do
come from
here.
overseas and
Yeah.
whatnot. So,
And if you're wondering, like, are we ever going to buy? The answer is yes. But at this point, we believe we're in a very strong position to look into our next purchase, which God willing will be a landed. God willing, right? We say God willing because this requires a lot of other things to happen. But for now, like for us to rent at a fraction of what would be the interest of a property like that, we know that we are very blessed, and that God has really provided like a full year of rental in advance for us to be in that space. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for providing that new space, for even providing the buyer who bought the space and loved it, and we're just so grateful. And even though it's so sad to leave behind all these physical things, it's also just a reminder that these are just physical things. It's almost an exercise in life, right? That we can't take anything away, and we're just stewarding all of this, which will all go to somebody else in the end. And what's really important is that the family's together, and that the family's growing, and that real estate, the house that we stay in, has a purpose. And so for me, as a real estate person myself, that's why when the weight of other people who can't sell their houses, they come at me, I feel it, because that was me for a while. And that's why when God brought the buyer, and it's such a divine timing, right? Because he exercised it exactly the day after our SSD period was up, we just know that has to be God. So closing thoughts, last sentence.
I'm just really thankful for the house, thankful for the season. Some people are like, "Why are you moving already?" I'm like, yeah, well, the needs change, right? The family change and the needs change. And I think that's what a home always is evolving. And I feel ridiculously thankful and fortunate to be able to say, hey, we are able to move. We are able to kind of find an even bigger space. I did not actually imagine it was possible. And I think when Sarah was first suggesting to rent our current place, I was like, really? Are you sure? That's like a lot of effort. Thinking, yeah, so mafan. I feel really fortunate to be able to, and thankful that we found a place to move into. And just really grateful to have been here. It was definitely a step up from our last place. And I guess the next place is in its own way a step up from this place. So not that I've ever really, demanded it or asked for it. I think just we feel really, really blessed. And I hope that this encourages you. I know everybody's situation is not the same. And obviously there are people who do a lot with a lot less. Kudos to you.
But we just want this to be inspiring you to believe that like God is always going to provide for you and your family. And when you have more children, God is going to provide the home and the house that you need for these children to grow.
Yep.
So keep believing and keep seeking the Lord as to like, how he can expand your territory, how you can stretch that. That's in Isaiah 54, which was one of the key verses we are meditating on since last year until now. And it's coming to pass. We're really literally expanding territory. Just some takeaways, like if you're looking to real estate, right? I mean, buying 99-year leasehold is not an absolute no-no, especially if the space, right, comes with that kind of benefit. Because we did have an increase in our value. There was an increase in our value, right? Because we bought 2.91, we sold 3.45. The mistake that we made and why we're only breaking even is because we selected a floating interest rate, right? And so we paid a lot of interest, like more than $300,000, $400,000 worth of interest. And so we're barely breaking even on our tax, renovation, and interest. But the fact is that it's not as if it's not going to increase the value, is that if you want that space, there's no point like hopping on freehold if a 99-year leasehold can give you more space. And lastly, like renting is not always a bad thing, because especially for landed homes, which is where we are right now, the ratio of your rental versus the mortgage is actually way, way less. And in fact, just going to be a portion of the interest. And so for a while, even though we're not invested, I mean, we believe this is the right choice for us. We do want to be invested in the next property, but we're going to take our time and be led by the Lord to make that move, because that's going to be a huge multi-million-dollar decision. And we don't want to make that lightly. So we thank you for watching. I'm sarahxmiracle, and we are Miracle Family. We're going to be making more content about our family season, even though we stopped previously for a while. Ironically, since we moved into this house, we actually couldn't keep up with the vlogs. But we just want to make sure that we keep sharing our testimonies, keep sharing our stories to encourage you to live that faith-filled life. See you guys soon.
Bye.